Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast. Discover yourself, break out of mediocrity, and become the mom you've always aspired to be. Here's your host, Kirsten Tyrell.
Hey everybody, welcome to Marvelous Moms Club. I'm so excited for this episode. I have a really sweet, adorable friend of mine from high school here today to share a really amazing story with you guys. We have stayed connected on social media and we've tried to connect in real life, but this is as good as it's going to get. And this is the reason I love this podcast, because I can just stay friends with people all the time. So Welcome to the show, Joanna. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
It's going to be fun to connect. And we started recording before, and I don't know if you heard me say this, but the last time I remember seeing you was inside Target, and I had to rush to get like birthday gift stuff because I had forgotten about a birthday party. And I was so sad because I wanted to catch up with you and I didn't have time. It wasn't like one of those where you're like, I'm just going to be busy and avoid that person. It was like, dang it, I really want to talk to you and I can't.
I think I was very pregnant at that time too. And
you probably were.
Yes. So
yeah. Which would have been a really good story, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today. And I don't know if that was the pregnancy that you are referring to, but Joanna,
that is actually, yes.
Joanna's a saint. She's an angel. And I'm just going to not even like tell anybody your story. I'm just going to let you tell it. So just first of all, let's get some background on your children and like the stage of motherhood you're in, so everybody understands where you're coming from and your background and everything like that.
Okay. So my family, I have been married for 13 years now. And our oldest child is 9. And then we have a son that's 8 years old. And then another daughter that's 6, and then another son that's 4. So we've got 2 girls and 2 boys. So
awesome.
That's my family, and I was complete at that family.
You were done. 4 was good.
Yes. I'd hit my max at 4. I said, I am not having any more for us. So,
and there's the sneaky little like phrase right there. No more for us. So
that's right. Yes.
That's not where your pregnancy journey ends though. So tell me how everything came about and just give everybody like, let's just dive in. Tell us the story, how this happened and what it was like.
Okay. So, well, it kind of goes back about 12 years is honestly what it goes back to. My husband and I, we struggled with infertility for about a year and a half. We had done 2 rounds of Clomid, 2 rounds of artificial insemination, and then we'd actually went over to an OBGYN at that point, and they did the artificial inseminations, and neither one of those took. And we couldn't figure out why. And we thought that the artificial insemination would work. We're like, yeah, and in my mind, I never pictured us having a problem getting pregnant because my sisters, they were just getting pregnant and having babies and no problems. My mom never had any problems. And so we couldn't figure out what was going on. And we had done testing with the both of us and everything was fine. Well, we thought, and so I actually had to scheduled so that I could get my tubes blown. And we were trying to figure out what was going on. And I'd made that appointment, and then I was kind of late on my cycle. I'm like, what the heck? I took a pregnancy test, and I had seen so many negatives, and for once I saw a positive.
Which is so life-changing, right?
It really was, yes. And the hardest part about it, honestly, was it was an older pregnancy test, and we didn't have like the instruction manual, so we didn't even know if it was a positive. And we're like, I don't know. And it was on a Sunday. We're all over at my family's house, and we started looking up for a manual, and then we couldn't find out it was positive. And so we were just completely mind blown. And that pregnancy went fantastic. And I went into my doctor, when I found out I was pregnant, and she's like, hold on, Joanna, how did this happen? I said, I don't know. Like, it just did. And so I got pregnant, and then my next child is less than 17 months apart. And so it came really fast. And honestly, we didn't know if it was going to take a while to get pregnant again or what. And so it finally, so it happened, and then we didn't have any struggles after that. And
Amazing.
it really was. And I was just like, all right, well, that was a trial, and I'm glad we don't have to go through that, because going to those baby blessings and all these family functions and everybody having babies, and I just couldn't get there. And I finally got
Yeah.
there. And so then after we had our fourth child, um, I I didn't feel complete. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same point, like I knew like I was done. Like I couldn't take another kid. With
Yeah.
my husband's schedule and with my schedule of working and just everything, I was like, there's no way I can take on another child. And I told my sister, I said, I just don't feel like I'm done. She's like, just calm down, Joanna. It's just take it by time. Your baby's only 6 months old at this point.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of just like, all right, whatever. And I just let it go. And throughout this time, my brother and his wife, they had been struggling with infertility themselves, and they had gotten pregnant, and they had gotten pregnant through IVF with twin boys. And I'm going to get emotional about this, but I shouldn't. um, but those during that pregnancy, I think it was about 26 weeks, she lost one of the twins, and
Oh.
so then she had to carry that baby still, and they carried a few more weeks, and then they ended up having to deliver their son Owen through a C-section, and he was born. He was in the NICU for a while, but he's healthy and he's happy. So they've got a son, and that was the most amazing thing, to be able to see my brother and my sister-in-law with this child that they've been yearning for, and which took me back to where I had felt when
Right.
we had desired to have a kid and we couldn't, and they finally got their baby. Um, and then after they did they did another round of IVF, and it was successful until she was about 6 or 7 weeks, and then she lost the baby after that. And I think
Mm.
they had implanted two embryos, and then one took, and then they miscarried. So then it was coming up for another round for them to do it, and I was done having kids, and we were doing a baby shower for my sister, my oldest sister, who had had another child or was pregnant with another child, and we were actually walking around Target, and she says, my sister-in-law, we were just talking, and she's like, you could just have a baby for me. I'm like, you know what, I really could. Like it is
Wow.
reality. And we were kind of
Yeah.
joking about it. And then I was just like, yeah, I could. And so I just was thinking about it. And it was after that my mind really, um, really went into a different state, because I knew that the
Mm-hmm.
fact of that I could carry a baby for them was a possibility. Of course, I need my husband's approval, and there was a whole bunch of things that we had to get through. But so this is where the spiritual part comes in, to be honest with you. I started praying to my Heavenly Father, and I was just saying, you know what, how can I help them? There's got to be a way. Just kind of let me know how I can and what I can do to help them. And it
Mm-hmm.
it went on for a few days or whatever. And then I was actually running on the treadmill, and I was at my other sister's house, and I was running on the treadmill, and she has a mirror in front of it. And as I'm running, and I think I had done like 4 or 5 miles at that point, and so I was feeling exhausted. But
Mm-hmm.
I was looking in this mirror, and I was like, oh my gosh, Heavenly Father has blessed me with this body that I can produce children now, that I can carry a baby, and I don't have problems during my pregnancies, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And so I just got emotional, and I was just crying, and then I started laughing at myself for
No.
crying, and I'm like, what's going on here?
That's
So
so sweet,
I
though.
it was, and that was like my moment. And so I went back down to my knees, and I prayed to my Heavenly Father again, and I was like, is this really what I should do? And I just had the most overwhelming, comforting feeling that, you know what, maybe this is a possibility, and if you desire to do this, then it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put a leap of faith into this, because there's a lot on the line here.
Right.
And so I figured the next step was to actually talk to my husband and see if I had his approval because it was going to affect him in many ways as well.
Yeah.
And so I just went to him and I said, "Hey, this is what's been going on. This is where I'm battling internally. Let's remember how it felt like when we couldn't get pregnant with our first baby, and when we finally did, can you imagine if Haley wouldn't have ever had any siblings?" And I said, just think about it throughout this week. I won't even bother you about it. And then it was the next day, and this was in January. I was sitting at the table with my sister-in-law and my mom, and my husband comes up to us and he puts his hand on her shoulder and says, "Trini, let's figure out how to get you guys a baby." And I
Oh.
was like, "Oh, hold on, like we really are doing this?" And
Okay, so it's a
he
go?
said, "It's a go, this is for sure." And so after, we went through some details and talked to my brother about it, and then they went to their doctor. Luckily, the infertility doctor was here in town. He travels from here to Salt Lake, Pleasant Grove area. And she had gone into him and said, "Hey, we're ready to do another round." And he says, "Okay, putting two embryos in you is not really a good option." He's like, "If we could put one in you and somebody else." She says, "Great, I have a surrogate. So we've got somebody that can help us." And he's like, "Hold on."
Oh
So
my
we
gosh.
we talked after that, and we kind of made a plan, and I said, "I want to help you. I want to do this, but I can only implant one embryo."
Mm-hmm.
And because I still I've never been pregnant with twins, for one thing.
Right.
And the second part is I still help provide for my family, so I need to be able to work. And I've got four
Right.
kids that I still need to take care of. And
Yes.
so so I'm like, that's kind of a big deal here. So they're like, "Great." So what we ended up doing at that point was moving forward, and it was such a process um, to to get to the point that we needed to. We had legal
Oh.
documents that we needed to do. We had medical documents, or medical like inspections, or I don't know, what do you call them? Examinations. That's what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband had to do testing. So we all had to do testing. Now, the important thing to remember here is that it had nothing to do with my husband physically. It was my brother's sperm and my sister-in-law's egg. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's how the embryo was made. Um, as in, I mean, because we have to make sure that is clear that my husband had no part
Was
and
not yes.
I had no part. So
Right, right.
that needs to be clear there. So the only genetic part of this is that I'm the baby's aunt. So it's
Yeah.
great. Um, so what the goal here was to try and get them two babies. Well, the goal was to get them at least one baby. And
Right.
if we could get them two babies, then that's a miracle in itself. And
Mm-hmm.
and so we were actually implanted on the same exact day. And so the plan was that we knew that she would have to do a C-section, and she actually lived in Vegas at the time. So we knew that the babies would not be born on the same day because it was important that they were there for the delivery, the birth of their own child.
Right.
And so we had to figure out that.
Wow.
What ended up happening was that she had to do an early C-section, and she was born about a month before our due dates. And so
Amazing.
she was not pregnant anymore, and I was still pregnant in July, and it was hot in St. George, but it was spending a lot
Oh.
of time by the pool, and it was fine. So,
Oh my
so
gosh.
she ended up delivering, and then I delivered here in St. George, and they were here for the delivery, and they got two babies, and they have their son. So they have a son and two daughters now.
That's amazing.
So,
I just think it's amazing
yeah.
that both turned into a fetus. Like, was that like
Hmm.
that's pretty amazing in and of itself, right? That both of them took and that she had
Yes.
two babies on their way.
Yes, and hers actually split at one point. And so for about a week there, they were planning on three babies, but then
Oh my
one of hers, she
gosh.
ended up miscarrying one of them. And I think that was one of the tender mercies because three babies would be a lot of babies to have.
Yeah, right. So what was that like emotionally to be carrying another baby though? Like I know you had to keep your family involved and they understood that you were like doing this as like an act of service. But what was it
Mhm.
like? Because everybody knows pregnancy is not just like a walk in the park. It's the better part of a year. It requires so much physical and emotional and mental sacrifice. So was it just, did you
Mhm.
just feel guided and comforted through it? Or was there points when you were like, why am I doing this?
It was probably more towards the end where I was like, I am ready for this baby to be out. No, but it was actually very comforting. When we had talked about doing this in the first place, I didn't even think about the shots and all the medication I was going to have to do, and that changed to my body. And
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, I didn't think about that at all. And so when it came the time to start doing all these shots and twice a day sometimes, that was hard. Like, but at the same time, it wasn't that bad. I
Mm-hmm.
never once gave myself a shot. My husband either did it or one of my sisters did it. I never did a shot myself. And, but emotionally, I went into it knowing first that I didn't want any more babies.
Yeah.
I was so very grateful for my babies, but I did not want to have any more. That was my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so emotionally through that, I was completely fine. I when I had talked about the delivery, like, when I was pregnant, I was like, yeah, when it comes to delivery, I don't want to hold the baby when I'm after I've delivered her or anything. I don't want to hold the baby while I'm in the bed. So so after I had delivered her, they actually went into the other room, took her, and they were able to have some family bonding time. Um, and then there were a couple of complications, during
Mm-hmm.
the delivery, but they came in and we were just kind of there, and everybody was just kind of in awe, and everybody seeing the baby. And my brother came over and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Thank you, Joanna." And
Oh,
that is honestly a moment that I will never forget.
I
And
bet.
just the feeling of gratitude that he had for what had just happened, and all I could tell him was thank you, because he gave me the opportunity to do that, like
Mm-hmm.
I kind of look at it that way. Um, but then I just kind of was like, can I hold her? And
Mm-hmm.
so then they gave her to me and they put me in my arms, and I was just like, "Oh my heck." Like, this really just happened. For one, she's straight from heaven. For two,
Yeah.
this is my niece and she's here, and it was absolutely amazing, and to be able to share that moment with all of our family surrounded, and just to be like, mission accomplished. Like,
Yeah.
this is done. I've done my part, and now I get to go home and I get to heal on my own and not have to have the stress of a brand new baby.
Right. Oh my
and
gosh.
and so it was absolutely amazing, just that feeling that was in that room at that time, and to know that it's done, and I've
Yeah.
done what I needed to do, and I've helped them complete their family, and that was my goal from the very beginning. And I didn't feel like I didn't have that postpartum of where's my baby. I never felt like that. And during the pregnancy, I never felt like, oh yeah, this isn't my baby. I'm not going to be able to have a baby to take care of. I never felt like that. I felt the peace and of, this is for my brother and his wife, and this is my niece. I still get to see her. It's not like I'd never be able to see her again.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to have this special relationship with my niece. And
Yeah.
so that was, I mean, that was special to me.
That's
So,
so amazing. Did you guys
yeah.
go to like doctor's appointments together, especially since you guys were pregnant at the same time and kind of in the exact same point in your pregnancies? Would you go together?
No, because she was there in Vegas and I was here.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
if
So
she
that,
happened to be here, yeah. So if she happened to be here for the appointments, then that was fantastic. And I wanted them to come. Of course, they were there for the ultrasounds. I think there was one ultrasound that my sister-in-law was there, but my brother couldn't be. Um,
mm-hmm.
but I always had somebody with me, whether it was my husband or my sister-in-law and brother, because I was like, somebody needs to be there because if by chance something is wrong, I don't want to be the only one there for it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so it
I don't
it
blame you.
always yeah, like I'm like I don't want that to be on me. And so it was always good to have somebody there. But yeah, when Trini was in town, she would come to my appointments with me. So
Wow.
that was good.
So how has it been
Yeah.
for your kids? Like, I think we kind of started talking about that. They understood what you were
Mhm.
doing. I mean, did all of your children even understand like how babies are made to understand how that all worked, or did it make that discussion easier? I just feel
Well,
like there'd be so much more involved than what you'd even initially think.
yes. That was, we did end up having the birds and the bees conversation with our 8 and 9-year-old because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're
Yeah.
like, wait, I'm confused. I'm like, all right, you two in my bedroom, let's have a conversation about this. And so we were able to explain to them, okay, so this is Timmy and Trini's baby, and this isn't really normally how babies are made, but but it is this time around. So, but
Wow.
from
Yeah.
from it was kind of really awkward a little bit. I didn't expect to have that conversation with them yet, but I mean they're getting to that age, and so it kind of just maybe it actually made it a little bit easier at the same time. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so the other ones, like my other two, they were at the time 5 and 3. They didn't really understand. They just knew that I had Trini's baby in my tummy, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily normal, but it was going to be for us for a minute. So
Yeah. It was
yeah,
just your temporary normal as a family, and everybody
yes,
just navigated it together.
yes, exactly, exactly. And my oldest, she's like, "Mom, can we have a baby?" I'm like, "No, we can't." But you've got two baby cousins that are ready for you to come play with them. So, so that really helped out. Yes. Well, we had actually my husband got a vasectomy before I actually did the implant for the IVF.
Uh-huh.
Um, because we had the feeling that our family was complete. And so what I was like, you can go ahead and get a vasectomy before I do this pregnancy because that's fine with me. And that way we can make sure that we don't accidentally get pregnant when I'm supposed to be getting pregnant for them. So, so we didn't even
Yeah,
have
that
the
would be so
opportunity.
interesting.
Yes. Yes. Like I was scared, like one of the ultrasounds that we went in, like I didn't have a fear that I was pregnant, but I was still like, it kind of hit me for the pre-pregnancy ultrasound. Like, I'm like, you don't see a baby in there at all, right? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, fantastic.
We're good. We're
So
good. There's
we're good.
no surprises.
Yes.
That's
And so,
hilarious.
yeah, so we knew that we were completely done, and we just had to, kind of explain to our kids once again, like we're done having kids. And I actually have a sister who her youngest wants to have a sibling and a younger sibling, and she's like, "Mom, Joanna can just have a baby for us." She's like, "No, it doesn't just work that way."
You're the
So
family surrogate now. Well, that
I'm
was my next
apparently
question.
yes.
Are you going to do it again? Would you do it again, or do you feel like your body's done?
I am done. Because of the complications that I had with the delivery, because I had placenta accreta. And so that's where the
Mm-hmm.
placenta actually grows and starts attaching to the uterus. And so
Mm-hmm.
that we found out that I had that at delivery. And if I did get pregnant again, I would be very high risk. So
Got it.
at that point, like my OB, she says, I would highly recommend, it's not a good idea to get pregnant again. I said, okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
fine with me. So, but if I didn't, if I didn't have that issue, I would possibly consider doing it again for them. I wouldn't do it for
Mm-hmm.
anybody else. I would only do it for a family member. But since I can't do it anymore, then I mean, I think it's that much easier to say that I would do it again, but
Yeah,
I
right.
I can't. So I'm done being pregnant. My body has been pregnant for like 12 years off and on, so it's done now at this point. Or I guess only 9 years,
Yeah.
right? Only 9 years. But yeah. So not 12 years, no.
That's amazing. What would
So
you say to somebody tossing the idea around if they could do surrogacy? Like, do you have any tips? I don't think this is a super common thing, but maybe it's more common than I know. Like maybe just emotionally, how did you process anything like that that you would say to somebody wanting playing around with the idea?
I would probably say you need to make sure that you are emotionally detached. Um, Personally, for myself, I could not do it for somebody that was not a family member. I need to have that physical connection with
Mm-hmm.
Sadie. Sadie's her name. And like, I absolutely love that I can see Sadie whenever I want to. I watch them sometimes, and Olive, her sister, and their brother Owen, and I get to see them and I get to have that connection. But for me, I would not be able to do it for somebody who was not a family member, or that I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be able to see them often. So I think my advice would be to make sure that you are emotionally ready for it, because I don't think that it
Yeah,
is for everybody. And
right.
so where I've had that empathy of not being able to have a child, like I have that empathy. And so for me, I believe that was the plan for us. We went through that
Mm-hmm.
trial in the beginning so that we could have the empathy to be able to go through this and to bring Sadie to this earth. So
I love it. Did you
that's what
get
I
any
would say.
weird reactions from people around you in your life? Like, did you get any slack for it? Flack,
Not
slack?
not too much. I tried to make a lot of light out of the situation. Like if people are like, "Oh, you're having another baby," I'm like, "Oh, it's not my baby, it's my brother's baby," or like, "I'm pregnant with my brother's baby." Like, I depending on the time and my mood, there were times that I just wanted to make an awkward moment, and I would just tell them that I'm pregnant with my brother's baby, and
That is so
and
funny.
so and yeah, like my husband would even, like, people would ask him, "You guys are having another kid?" He's like, "No, it's her brother's baby." What? Like, it was pretty fun. But I had so much support around me. Like, it was absolutely amazing. And if people did have problems with it, they didn't come and tell me that they did. But I am surrounded by amazing people, which made it that much easier. Um, and so I was just completely blessed with that. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
I love it. Well,
Um,
I'm going to ask you a question I ask everybody at the end of these calls, and I feel like we need to ask it in a different way, but I'm like, don't know how we would do that. What I usually ask what makes you a marvelous mom. So answer that because I want to know that anyway. And then
okay.
answer what makes you a marvelous surrogate.
Oh shoot. Okay, what makes me a marvelous mom? I don't know if I would really consider myself a marvelous mom, but I will pretend like I am absolutely amazing.
Oh, stop
And
it.
I feel like I feel like through being a surrogate, I was able to teach my children about service. Just
Mhm.
kind of on a little bit of a twist, but I was able to teach them that serving other people, for one, is not always convenient, because being pregnant is
Mhm.
not necessarily convenient, but it's out of love, and through serving other people, you're showing your love for them. And I feel like I was able to teach my children that, and they can see, yeah, mom was pregnant, and it wasn't the easiest thing, of course. I mean, for a few months, she just laid by the fireplace and she barely made us dinner. But they
Mhm.
saw that I was able to serve other people, I was able to serve our family. And so hopefully that's something that they will always remember, that serving others is what is most important. And I had that
Yeah.
example in my life, and that's something that I will always treasure through my parents. And so hopefully my children can pick up on that, and they can always remember that that's what's important. So,
I'm sure they
what makes,
will, 100%.
well, I hope so. So what makes me a marvelous surrogate? Um, oh
I
shoot.
can answer that
I
for you.
think,
You just mentioned being sick by the fireplace. I didn't even think about you just think about the birth, but you had to go through morning sickness, which
I
is
did.
awful.
Yeah. Yes, I was still able to function, except for the first couple of months. It was difficult, and I was implanted. That just sounds weird. I got pregnant the beginning of October or the end of October. And so it was during the winter, and the first few months were during the winter, and it's cold outside. I didn't want to be outside anyway. And so I just laid by the fireplace, and my husband would literally come home for work, and he's like, "Have you done anything today?" I'm like, "No." Go pick up a
This.
pizza for dinner. I've done this. I am growing a baby. That's what I'm doing. So
Yep.
it
Wow.
so I mean, maybe the sacrifice, I don't know, but I think there's sacrifice in so many
Yeah.
things, and it was probably one of the most amazing things that I've ever had the opportunity to do in my life. And if I could redo it, I would still redo it. Like
Yeah.
it it was absolutely amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I
So,
love it
and
so much. I
to
think
give them the
Go ahead.
opportunity. I was just going to say, to give
Yeah.
them the opportunity to have another child and to be able to fulfill their desires to be parents to their full capacity. So,
Yeah.
yes.
I love that. I think this story is so fascinating. I know following you on social media, you don't see people's posts all the time. Then all of a sudden you had a belly, but then I don't even know how I knew it wasn't your baby. Probably not till the very end, and then you have to go backwards and you're like, "Wait a minute. Wait, what? Like I thought she was just having a baby and then is she's not keeping it? What's happening?" So,
Yeah, not
I
only
just
is she not
love
keeping
this
it, it's not
story.
hers. So,
Like, what
yes.
happened? No, I think it's such a sweet story of true sacrifice and love, and I think it's one of the most selfless things anybody can ever do. And I'm so glad that you came on and shared it here. It's just such a fun, beautiful story. So thank you for being willing to share it. And I think you're
Well,
amazing and
you are welcome.
beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's all true.
So,
Okay, well, I would love to hear what everybody listening thinks. So I'm going to start a comment thread on the day that this episode airs, and I just want to hear feedback and like the thing that people are maybe the most impressed about. So everybody head over to the Facebook group, the Marvelous Moms Club Facebook group, and weigh in on the conversation. Let's have a discussion about surrogacy and how amazing it is. And until then, Joanna, have a wonderful day, and thank you for sharing your story.
okay, you are so very welcome. Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.